Okay, start with the vegetable bed, and first let me acknowledge that my bean trellis fell down in a storm and I left it there instead of trying to push it back up. I'll talk about that in a minute. The peppers in here are finally starting to get going. The ones in the front were first to put on fruit and have definitely done the best. So that whole peppers growing in shade thing, I mean, they can, but they'll just take forever to make you any peppers. I mean, these are probably like almost 4 feet tall before they actually put on the first pepper. This paprika, however, even though it is tiny, it's actually got a ton of peppers on it. Like 6 or 7 peppers on it, which is crazy because it's like a foot tall. This blue spice basil, which has been an excellent grower, was basically a shrub, and then I cut it back to almost nothing. These are different basils up here, and they, again, it's a tough year for basil. Basil and dill would not go, but you know, sometimes it's like that. So keep on trying, and maybe some will catch. I transplanted out some beets here a couple weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, can't remember exactly. They seem to be doing okay. This one has sort of wedged itself out of the ground, which is interesting. I did have that growing in a little peat pot, and so it's going to be an above ground beet, I guess. But they all seem to be, for the most part, doing okay. And the pole beans, so we did have this obviously as an upright trellis, and then we had a really bad storm, and earlier in the season, the storms we had, it just blew through. But then we had so much in the way of bean growth that it had some weight behind it, so it fell, but it fell back on the fence, and so it's still propped up, and I can still harvest from it. And I figured that would be better because I figured it would probably just fall over again this year if I try to, you know, pull it back up right. So yeah, it's been working so far. The only thing is that I had 2 tomato plants on there, and the one in the back is pretty much gone. This one still is producing the black strawberry, and these are Blauhilde, and I had some Chinese red noodle beans in there, and I think there's one plant that's still producing. This was a late round, and they're starting to get going there on the bottom, but we really haven't gotten but a handful of those. Now Strawberry Hill, I've got my dahlias are probably 6 feet tall. I had no idea these were this huge, or if this is just a product of them being in semi-shade. I have had one large, lovely dinner plate size bloom, and I'm about to have 2 more. Some backup buds there. That one hasn't bloomed yet, and that one hasn't bloomed yet, but they're getting close. You can see the strawberries have thoroughly taken over the hill. They've grown on down. I've been letting them. Have some huckleberries in the back there that I'm just letting go. Maybe next year we'll have enough berries to do something with, but that's when you have to cook anyway, so you can't just eat them raw. Elderberry, I think it's been real hot and dry. I think I probably haven't watered it enough. Of late it's looking a little bit sad, a little crispy. Serviceberry looking fine. And now all of the tomatoes on here, for the most part, have been doing really good. This one right here, which was a German Johnson, I believe, got from a friend. And we got a couple of tomatoes off of there. It hasn't been exactly prolific, but they're bigger beefsteak style. But then these little guys, these little teaspoon tomatoes, have been prolific and really, really good. So those are awesome. Hopefully we'll grow some more of those next year. Put some mustards in. That's a comfrey mustard. Got blackberries poking under the fence. This is thornless blackberry. That's starting to do pretty good. I'm gonna have to make it some space on the trellis here and tie it back since it's kind of sprawling out. Clearly that mustard is tasty to somebody. The echinacea, I probably need to cut it back. I've just been letting it go and do whatever it wants to. You can see it's growing in the middle of the peach tree there. I have discovered that rodents really like ground cherries. So This plant has gotten almost nothing off of it. You can see all the ground cherries on the ground, but I figure if they're eating these, it's closest to the fence. That means they're not wandering further into the yard eating other things. So I'm just leaving it. These habanadas finally starting to ripen. I think this is kind of like a determinant. I should have probably done my research, but where it just kind of sets all the fruit at one time, sort of a thing. Because it took a long time, but they're finally going. Okras. She's doing nice, but to have a flower there maybe. I've got zinnias peppered in here. Okras are doing good. This ground cherry kind of sprawling it. I got a few more off of that. Banana. Tons of peppers. You've been eating a few as they come off, but I'm trying to let them really hang on and get ripe. And this okra, although it's the tallest, I don't know if you can tell. It's kind of crispy leaves there. It's because it's the biggest. Maybe it's just not getting enough water, so I'm having to keep that watered more than pretty much everything else. Poblano tree happening there. And this one's been not as happy as its brethren, but it's doing. This is one of my staked tomatoes that fell over, and I just took it down. Tiny stake there. Been letting it finish up the last couple tomatoes before I cut it out. And then our red leaf blueberry, putting on some growth. Like I haven't, it's been either raining or hot and dry, so like things have just been weird. I'm trying to keep it even as best I can. Very small okra, which I'm pretty much sure if we get like an okra off of this, that might be all we get this year. Parsley, lettuce getting burned up. Finally took the mustard out and collected all the seeds. That's the stems. Purple sage, parsley going to seed. This little guy, I put in a second round of Minnesota midgets, little tiny cantaloupes. And they just kept getting eaten up, so again, like that's probably the best looking one. I don't know if we're gonna get anything off of that. And some volunteer tulsi. And I put my little friend, my husband got me out here. And since this is technically on that terrace and it's hanging over, it could be our queen lime zinnia. It's kind of going crazy. Although it does have a bunch of powdery mildew. So I probably need to make some milk spray, but this has been kind of the lowest on the totem pole for me of late.